don't screw it up. No, but seriously. CMS test calls ultimately test for like a bunch of different things that all kind of boil down to these two, is how quickly health plans connect to foreign language interpreters and how accurately the information is conveyed to the beneficiary. So as an interpreter, I may have very little control over that first part, other than maybe being quick to answer the call when it comes in. But that second part, the actual accuracy of the information conveyed, that rests largely upon my shoulders, right? Like meaning the interpreter's shoulders. So, I mean, if you think about it, providing accurate and complete interpretation is the cornerstone of what interpreters do. And our clients, they need to know without a shadow of doubt, and this is what CMS tests for, that they're non-English speaking clients, they're limited English proficiency patients, that they will have access to all the same information and all the same resources and will be able to make the informed decisions about their treatment and care in the exact same way as you and I can. So yes, so with CMS test calls specifically, health plan representative need to be on point with the correct answers. But if their language interpreters fail to relay that information to the beneficiary accurately and completely and in a timely manner, the call can still fail. The call will fail, actually. So it's a pretty big responsibility. So, that second value, the accuracy of the information, of how it's relayed, it's vitally important that all interpreters are professional, that they are knowledgeable, that they are skilled. So at the end of the testing season, the health plan gets a CMS star rating based on the overall performance. So, but you can look at it this way, that ultimately the success rate of these calls does hugely depend on the availability and performance of an interpreter. So when an interpreter does their job well and relays the information accurately and does it in a timely manner, is professional and knowledgeable, that's taken care of half of that score. Very. Next question. No, I mean, it goes back to the previous question a little bit, right? Like, you would do much better running a marathon if you were training for it. And so the portion of the CMS testing process that I keep referring to as, the accuracy, the accessibility study. So this portion of the process requires interpreters to be concise, quick, and accurate. So they must interpret those plan or like Medicare specific questions completely and accurately. And it is nearly impossible to do so on the fly. Also, reading through the common questions that have been asked in the past, paying attention to some of that terminology and turns of phrase. And that would lead me into the next step, which is learning the terminology. It is important to be highly familiar with specialized terminology. Some sites offer the same information in 2 different languages. So you can look it up in both English and whatever language you're working with. There are glossaries available. I mean, you really want to make sure as an interpreter that you dig, you find out how to correctly say some of those things like summary of plan benefits, coverage gap, especially if there's not really a good, if it doesn't really exist in your culture and language normally. It's really good to do that research. Which brings me to that final last step of the preparation is you want to get your hands on appropriate resources and utilize them wisely. So I know, certified languages, we've worked with, our customers and our interpreters to develop some CMS resources. But you do want to look through those things. You want to look through familiar questions. You want to know your frequently used Medicare terminology, and you want to be very proficient with language-specific translations. So I feel like a commercial now, but wait, there's more. So obviously, as we just talked, right? Preparation is huge. You start before the testing, before the CMS testing season even starts, with preparation, following some of those steps. But I would also add a few things once you're specifically closer, once you are actually on a call. So you want to make sure your setup, your environment should be free from distractions, that you're able to focus. You want to make sure, if in preparation I said an interpreter should find those resources, get their hands on those resources. Well, for your setup during this call, you want to keep them handy, however that looks for you. Maybe it's having it on a screen, maybe it's having it, printed out, but you do want to have them easily accessible in case, you get stuck or something. Or just for your own peace of mind. It helps me sometimes to have it, just to know I have it, and it takes care of some of that anxiety. And finally, when you are on a call, you really want to just utilize your protocols. They are your friend, not your enemy, especially if the audio quality is not the best, right? Like, think about it. It can be so easy, even if you are familiar, with CMS test calls, it can be so easy to misunderstand. Did the person say Medicare, Medicaid, Medigap, Medi-Cal? Like, they all sound so similar. And you really don't want to assume, because again, if you do have experience with taking CMS test calls, you really want to say that plan name just exactly as it is, right? So you want to be able to listen for context, but you also want to be able to ask for verification whenever necessary, transparently, quickly, keeping that timeliness. So there are some necessary components that I think most experienced interpreters will tell you are essential to performing well on CMS test calls. Some of the ones I am kind of just thinking of to keep in mind: you want to interpret everything that's being said accurately without paraphrasing. You want to ask for repetition or clarification when you really need to. You want to use transparency when you do that. When you ask for clarification or repetition, you want to utilize all your protocols. You may ask the speaker, to use shorter phrases, whatever it is that you need. And you want to make sure that you always, always, always listen very attentively, active listening, and take, good notes, however you do that. The first thing is communication. So CLI shares with the interpreters any tips or new information throughout the CMS test season. If something comes up that we become aware of, we do want to set up the rest of our interpreters for success, and we do disseminate that information to help other interpreters be more successful if they encounter the same situation. So that communication, sharing those resources, sharing the tips, for sharing the new information, but also we do extensive internal monitoring. So we also monitor our interpreters internally in language, and we provide the feedback and suggestions, kind of like a dress rehearsal, to really really help narrow down on what each interpreter may still need to be successful for taking their CMS calls.